The lecture hall fell silent as Instructor Vakor strode to the center platform, his forearms gesturing with characteristic pride. Behind him, a reinforced containment unit hummed softly, its transparent walls revealing 3 juvenile Thixian prowlers, apex predators from the death world of Thixis Prime. Dr. Marakeen sat in the 3rd row, her datapad balanced on her knee as she observed the demonstration with professional interest. The human xenobiology professor had seen many species during her tenure at the Galactic Academic Consortium, but Thixian prowlers were notoriously rare in educational settings. Too dangerous, most institutions claimed, too unpredictable. Today, Vakor announced, his chitinous plates gleaming under the lecture hall lights, you will witness the culmination of 17 cycles of behavioral conditioning. These cubs have been trained to recognize authority, to respond to dominance displays, and to submit to those who demonstrate superior predatory characteristics. The assembled students, a mixture of Zenthari, Quilxians, and other species, leaned forward in their seats, all except Dr. Keen, who simply watched with those unnervingly calm brown eyes that Vakor had never quite understood. Vakor had invited the human professor specifically for this demonstration. Humans were soft creatures, fragile and slow by galactic standards. They came from a world of moderate temperatures and gentle weather, a planet so unremarkable that most species dismissed it entirely. Vakor wanted to show his students and the human what true predatory excellence looked like. Observe, he said, entering the security code. The containment unit's door slid open with a hiss. The cubs emerged cautiously. Each was the size of a Terran wolf covered in midnight blue scales that rippled with bioluminescent patterns. 6 eyes swept the room, vertical pupils contracting in the light. Their razor-sharp claws clicked against the polished floor, and rows of serrated teeth were visible behind partially open jaws. Vakor extended his primary arms, chest plates flaring in the traditional Catharian dominance display. He had practiced this for weeks. The cubs should approach, lower their heads, and submit to his authority. The first cub tilted its head, regarding Vakor with what might have been curiosity. Then it turned away. The second cub sniffed the air, its nostrils flaring. It took 2 steps toward Vakor, then stopped, attention drawn elsewhere. The third cub ignored the instructor entirely. A ripple of confusion passed through the students. Vakor's plates clicked together in irritation. This wasn't the script. He amplified his display, releasing pheromones designed to trigger submission responses in lesser predators. The cubs remained unimpressed. Then, as one, all 3 turned their heads toward the 3rd row. Toward Dr. Marakeen, the human professor hadn't moved. She sat perfectly still, her posture relaxed, hands resting gently on her datapad. She wasn't displaying dominance. She wasn't releasing pheromones. She was simply present. The first cub moved. Vakor stepped forward to intercept, but the creature flowed past him like water, its attention locked on the human. The second and third cubs followed, their movements synchronized and purposeful. Professor Keen, Vakor called out, an edge of concern in his translator's output. Please remain still. Do not make eye contact. I will. But Dr. Keen was already looking directly at the approaching cubs, not staring them down, not challenging them, just looking. Her expression was soft, open, utterly without fear. The first cub reached her row. Students scrambled aside, pressing themselves against the walls. The prowler ignored them completely. It climbed the steps with fluid grace, approaching the human with a low, rumbling sound that Vakor's translator couldn't quite parse. Then it did something that made Vakor's secondary brain temporarily shut down in confusion. It laid its head in Dr. Keen's lap. The human's hand moved slowly, gently, coming to rest on the cub's scaled head. Her fingers traced the bioluminescent patterns with a touch so light it might have been imagined. The cub's rumbling intensified and its 6 eyes slowly closed. The second cub wasn't far behind, climbing onto the seats beside Dr. Keen and pressing its body against her side. The third attempted to squeeze onto her other side, creating a pile of apex predators all vying for the human's attention. Dr. Keen laughed, a soft, warm sound that filled the shocked silence of the lecture hall. Her hands moved between the cubs, scratching behind sensory ridges, running along scaled spines. The prowlers, creatures bred to dominate entire ecosystems, melted under her touch like domesticated pets. Vakor stood frozen on the platform, all forearms hanging uselessly at his sides. 17 cycles of training, months of conditioning. And his cubs had abandoned him for a species that couldn't even survive a Category 2 planetary storm. Instructor Vikor, Dr. Keen said, her voice carrying easily across the hall despite its quietness. May I offer an observation? Vikor's translator made a strangled sound that might have been affirmation. You've been training them to recognize dominance, the human continued, still stroking the purring cubs. But predators don't actually submit to dominance. They submit to something else entirely. And what, Vikor managed, would that be? Dr. Keen looked up, meeting his eyes. One of the cubs had rolled onto its back in her lap, exposing its vulnerable belly. A display of trust that Vikor had never achieved despite months of work. Safety, she said simply. They don't want a master. They want a pack. They want to know that the creature they're with won't hurt them, won't compete with them, won't see them as a threat or a tool. She smiled. You were trying to dominate them. I'm just here. No threat. No challenge. Just another creature sharing space. Vikor felt something shift in his understanding. Humans came from a world where thousands of species had been domesticated, where apex predators had voluntarily joined human packs, where creatures that should have been rivals had instead become companions, not because humans dominated them. Because humans had learned over millennia to communicate something deeper than dominance. Trust, partnership, family. Your species, Vikor said slowly. Survive by making friends with your predators. Some of them, Dr. Keen agreed. The first cub had fallen completely asleep in her lap, its breathing deep and steady. We learned that you don't have to be the strongest to survive. You just have to be the one others want to survive. Alongside, the human professor looked down at the 3 Thixian, prowlers, each capable of killing a dozen. Beings before being subdued, now curled around her like oversized house cats. That's the real human superpower. Instructor, she said softly. Not our strength or our speed, but our ability to look at something deadly and dangerous and see a friend. Vikor watched as Dr. Keen continued to gentle the cubs, her movements patient and unhurried. Around the lecture hall, students began to whisper, their understanding shifting. The Catharian instructor had meant to demonstrate the superiority of proper predatory hierarchy. Instead, he had learned something far more unsettling about the soft species from Earth humans didn't conquer the food chain by being apex predators. They conquered it by convincing the apex predators to join them and looking at those 3 deadly cubs, peaceful and content in the human's lap. Vikor realized that perhaps Earth wasn't as unremarkable as the galaxy believed. Perhaps they had simply been measuring remarkability by the wrong metrics all along. Dr. Mara Keen, calm and smiling, had just rewritten his entire understanding of predation, one gentle touch at a time.